Hi, this is Gary. We're at the Seeger Institute here in Kurtistown, Hawaii. We're here to talk about pallets. Everything we have comes from here to there on a shipping pallet. Those pallets are made out of wood. They're pretty uniform. That's the whole idea. After they're used once or twice or a couple of times, oftentimes they're discarded and they end up in the landfill, or in a best case scenario, they end up being chipped and used as a mulch. Can we use those shipping pallets more optimally? Can we use them as a structural element, growing our own food, specifically to create raised planter beds? So let's begin our exploration of how we can use pallets and tires and metal roofing to create our own raised planter beds. Step 1, tires. If we can get big tires, that's great. If we can't, use small tires. All we're doing is using the tires to keep the pallets off the ground, to keep them from rotting. Above that, we've got 3 pallets, and they don't have to be perfect. In fact, take the ones that are more messed up than others because you're doing everybody a favor. Take the ones that people are least likely to use, because in this application, it really doesn't matter. The pallets are upside down. The reason the pallets are upside down is because there are 2 divots right here where the forklifts go. Those 2 divots are perfect because it creates a spot where our metal roofing can sit well, bound together by the race car tires. Depending on how high you want your beds, you can stack your pallets. When you get a bad back like mine, it's nice to be up here working. Step 3 are the beds themselves. The beds consist of 2 basic components: small tires and a piece of metal roofing. Try to make sure that the tires are equal diameter. They don't have to be exact, but it's helpful. Play with the sizes. I think a 16-inch tire works pretty well for this type of roofing. So if you notice, here are 2 planter beds. If you've got 4 tires, 2 of which are bigger than the other 2, use 2 small ones on one side and 2 big ones on the other side.
There's an elephant in the room, the tires. A lot of people think the tires might be toxic. That being said, we're also putting out to you, come up with your own ideas, come up with a better way. I went ahead and grabbed him this morning and I told him to show up on this porch with a sheep and let's hold his feet to the fire. Any final words, Gary?
What are we talking about, Matt?
We're looking for alternatives to the tires, the roofing, so if you have anything else that can, do it, share your ideas.
If the tires are a problem, and we're using the tires because at least right now, I'd rather use the tires and keep them out of the landfill. If that's an issue for you, it's the basic shape of the trough which we're using, and that can be defined either by the tire or it can be defined by a piece of wood. Redwood will maybe last longer. Bringing up the 2 ends and tying them together with a string or a wire. Just give yourself the opportunity to look at your work, and instead of thinking, wow, I've arrived, look at it through a fresh set of eyes every day, through humility, and saying, hey, how can this be better? And invite people to critique your work, and that's how we're going to get from where we are now to something which is a collaborative, more egalitarian future, where we're transitioning from consumers to stewards of the planet, which is where I think we all want to go. Remember, our fossil fuel-based world is based on each barrel of oil giving us the ability to do the work of 4.5 years of human labor. So we've got to think smarter, we've got to work smarter, not harder. The way I built these is you put the tire down first, and if you have somebody to hold it, that's nice. So you can have one person hold this tire, one person hold that tire, and you can lay the roof on top of that. That way you're using your muscles to screw down rather than trying to fight with gravity and fight with the screws and work upward. If this is difficult, I'm probably not doing it optimally. Abraham Lincoln said, if you give me 6 hours to cut down a tree, I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. So here we have a low profile tire, a piece of metal roofing, screwed into the tire, and it's hard to see because all these vines are already growing on this, is a piece of fencing that we fit in between 2 raised beds and supported by any kind of a metal or wooden stick that you can find. That creates a trellis on which the vines can grow, and then what we've done is we've tied these together with wire so that the raised beds themselves, they can mutually support each other so that the vines can grow from one to another. So we're not only using the horizontal space, we're using the vertical space, and then we're using the vertical space in that direction. So we're really increasing our growing footprint many times by thinking about it four-dimensionally. This is a small bit of fencing that was discarded. It's 6 feet long. From a professional fencer standpoint, there's not much you can do with 6 feet of fencing. But from a regenerative farmer standpoint, there's loads of stuff you can do. Any kind of fencing that you find, grab it. I can give you 50 reasons to use it. But one thing we can do with it is right here. We shoved it down in between our two raised planter beds, so it goes down in between, and then we're supporting it on either end with these vertical sticks, and then we're tying it together in the other direction. Basically, we've created a sailing ship with multiple masts. These pallets are stacked 3 high. Doesn't have to be. 3 high for my 5 foot 10 inch frame works well. I don't really like to bend down while I work, and when they're 3 high, it gives me the opportunity to work upright and to reach from the front of the bed to the middle of the bed without straining. If you're taller, you might want to think about stacking these higher. If you're building these for small children, you might want to think about stacking them lower. Other considerations are, if you've got livestock around, these can dissuade goats and pigs from getting at your stuff. Not entirely. Understand that your chickens might be in these beds. You get chickens, but you might lose some of your food. But what we're finding is by using the cross trellises here, we're actually disencouraging the chickens from going through here, and we're leaving the chickens outside this area. Even though we might have to duck to go in there, there are fewer chickens once we get in there. So design your space with human consciousness and the heart space in mind. Design spaces that people want to be in, want to work in. Give yourself the opportunity to have it be a place that people want to be, because you'll get more food grown if people want to be there than if you optimize for production and people don't want to be there. All of this wire is strung together, and over time, what happens is it's starting to sag. It's anchored down here to this tire, but as you can see, or at least I hope you can see, as I pull on this, I'm creating more tension. We're going to figure out one system for tensioning this, but if you decide to go with this system, do something that I didn't do, and that's anticipate the fact that this was going to sag over time. So whether it's a turnbuckle or a piece of wood, give yourself the opportunity to have something built into your design to take up that slack and create more tension over time. The next step is to think about the runoff from these planter beds and thinking about another planter bed there, or even a trough where you can grow fish or you can grow anything else. So all of this can be improved on. Think about maximizing the space, especially if you're in an urban environment where you're limited to space. Think about it four-dimensionally. Use what we've built as a basis and improve upon it and share knowledge. This is all about creating knowledge and sharing knowledge. It's all about critical thinking and creativity. We're living in a very complex system, and that system needs to continuously evolve. And at the center of that evolution has to be your consciousness and your creativity. So really, I would encourage you to ignore the sheep and to find the inner artist within you that's inside each of us, from a place of generosity and care for the planet. Find that inner artist and express that in some way that's going to be reflected in improving the planet and restoring planetary health.